They didn't protest or ask permission. They simply lived openly, and everything shifted. Some were loud, some were quiet, some were just visible enough to change what felt normal. This is the moment gay men in Thailand stopped asking if they belonged and started living like they always did. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. New Year Kittywoot turned something deceptively simple into a radical act: everyday affection. By publicly loving another man online, casually, consistently, and without dramatization, he challenged the long-standing belief that gay relationships must remain discreet to be tolerated. There were no grand statements or symbolic campaigns, just photos, moments, and ordinary tenderness shared openly, and that was precisely the disruption. In a culture that often accepts queer people only when their love is invisible, New Year made visibility feel natural. His influence lies in normalization. By refusing secrecy, he reframed what acceptance could look like, not conditional, not hidden, but integrated into daily life. For many followers, especially younger ones, his openness offered permission to imagine a future where love doesn't require editing itself to be acceptable. As New Year's partner, both Natapong shared more than affection, he shared risk. Choosing visibility alongside another man meant stepping into scrutiny together, knowing that public queer love often invites judgment. But both didn't retreat. He stood present, steady, and equal in the narrative. Together, both and New Year rejected the familiar scripts assigned to queer relationships: secrecy, tragedy, or eventual disappearance. Their relationship wasn't framed as scandal or sacrifice. It was ordinary, and that ordinariness became the message. Both significance lies in partnership. He showed that queer visibility doesn't have to be carried alone, and that love itself can be an act of quiet defiance. By choosing normalcy over drama, he helped redefine what meaningful representation looks like: not exceptional, not symbolic, but real. Porsche Apiwat didn't frame his life as a statement, and that, precisely, is what made it historic. After Thailand reached its marriage equality milestone, Porsche married his male partner openly, without spectacle or justification. There was no tone of defiance, no demand for applause, just the quiet certainty of someone who understood that his life no longer required permission. That calm confidence marked a cultural shift. For decades, gay men were expected to ask whether they belonged, to negotiate visibility carefully, to frame love as exception or bravery. Porsche represents the moment when that question stopped being asked. His marriage wasn't positioned as activism, it was positioned as continuity. Love led naturally to commitment, and commitment was recognized without argument. This matters because normalization changes power dynamics. By acting as if equality was already real, not symbolic, not conditional, Porsche helped move queerness out of debate and into lived reality. His life reflects a generation no longer waiting to be included, but living as full participants by default. Queerness has always existed in fashion, but acceptance has often been selective, aesthetic, and conditional. Arm Asawuth challenges that contradiction. By living openly as a gay man in the fashion world, he goes beyond surface-level inclusivity and confronts deeper expectations about masculinity, strength, and authority. Arm rejects the idea that masculinity must be rigid, emotionally restrained, or silent to be respected. Through style, presence, and openness, he reframes strength as self-expression rather than suppression. His visibility exposes how often fashion celebrates queerness only when it remains performative or safely detached from real identity. What makes Arm's presence powerful is its honesty. He doesn't dramatize queerness, nor does he hide it behind trend or irony. He treats it as truth, lived daily, visibly, without apology. In doing so, he expands the definition of what power can look like: expressive, fluid, and fully self-aware. Nafanach Chayawimhan demonstrates that visibility doesn't need volume to create impact. As an openly gay actor, he didn't position his identity as a turning point or a personal brand. He allowed it to exist quietly, steadily, alongside his work, and that consistency became transformative. There were no dramatic revelations crafted for attention, no insistence on being seen as exceptional or symbolic. His identity was treated as ordinary, and that ordinariness reshaped expectations. Audiences encountered queerness not as event or controversy, but as presence, repeated, familiar, unremarkable in the best sense. This form of representation is often overlooked because it doesn't shock or trend, but it endures. By continuing his career without interruption or spectacle, Knopfenach helped normalize LGBTQ+ existence within mainstream entertainment. He reminded audiences that not every revolution announces itself, some simply stay visible long enough to change what feels normal. Quiet visibility may not dominate headlines, but it rewrites them over time. Jenny Panhan never asked to be accepted. She assumed the space was already hers, and that confidence changed everything. In a media environment where LGBTQ+ figures are often expected to explain themselves carefully, soften their edges, or perform gratitude for tolerance, Jenny did the opposite. She was loud. She was funny. She was unapologetically herself. As a comedian and television host, Jenny transformed queerness into something audiences couldn't look away from, not because it was controversial, but because it was magnetic. Her jokes weren't distractions from identity. They were declarations. Humor became her weapon, her shield, and her language of resistance. Instead of framing queer life as struggle or tragedy, she framed it as joy, chaos, and confidence. That shift mattered. Jenny didn't just represent queer people, she reframed how they were emotionally received. Laughter lowered defenses. Familiarity replaced fear. Viewers didn't have to understand queerness to enjoy her presence, they just had to keep watching. And by doing so, they slowly absorbed a radical idea that queer people don't exist to justify themselves. They exist to live, loudly and fully. Jenny's legacy is not just visibility, but tone. She proved that joy can be political, that comedy can dismantle stigma, and that sometimes the most disruptive act is refusing to be serious about a system that never took you seriously to begin with. Aof Pongsak stands as a quiet contradiction to one of entertainment's oldest fears, that honesty destroys careers. When AOF came out as gay, many expected the familiar fallout: disappearing opportunities, shrinking audiences, industry silence. What followed instead was something far more unsettling to the status quo. Nothing collapsed. Aof didn't dramatize his identity, and he didn't retreat from it either. He came out, stayed out, and continued building his career in plain sight. Years later, he married his male partner publicly, without apology or spectacle. The message was simple but powerful. This is my life, and it is not negotiable. Rather than losing relevance, Aof gained depth. His music carried more emotional weight, his public image became more grounded, and his relationship with fans strengthened. Visibility didn't weaken his appeal, it clarified it. He became proof that audiences are capable of accepting truth when the industry stops underestimating them. AOF's importance lies in endurance. He didn't vanish after a brave moment. He didn't become a symbolic exception. He remained working, loving, succeeding, forcing the entertainment world to confront an uncomfortable reality. Queerness was never the risk. Pretending it didn't exist was... Arm Kittisak's impact isn't loud, and that's exactly why it lasts. In an industry deeply attached to rigid ideas of masculinity, especially in mainstream television, Arm chose a form of honesty that didn't demand attention. As a Channel 3 host, he didn't turn his identity into a headline or a storyline. He simply existed, consistently and confidently, on screen. That consistency became quietly revolutionary. Arm showed viewers that being openly gay didn't require flamboyance, tragedy, or explanation. It could look ordinary, professional, familiar. His presence reframed masculinity not through confrontation, but through repetition, appearing day after day as someone competent, respected, and unremarkable in the best way. There were no grand declarations meant to educate the public. His identity was treated as fact, not controversy. And in that normalcy, old assumptions began to erode. For many viewers, Arm became the first openly gay person they encountered, not in gossip or scandal, but in daily routine. That kind of representation doesn't shock society into change, it quietly rewires it. And by refusing spectacle, Arm Kittisak proved that sometimes the most radical thing you can do is simply stay visible and stay Art Pakpum represents a generation that no longer confuses politeness with progress. Blunt, articulate, and politically aware, Art refuses to dilute either his identity or his opinions for the sake of comfort. His openness about being gay is inseparable from his broader critique of society because for him, visibility without honesty is meaningless. Unlike older models of representation that emphasize gratitude and restraint, Art speaks with urgency. He challenges hypocrisy, calls out performative allyship, and questions systems that celebrate surface-level diversity while resisting real change. His queerness is not packaged as inspiration or tragedy. It is part of a larger refusal to stay quiet in the face of injustice. What makes Art significant is his clarity. He doesn't aim to soothe audiences or make discomfort disappear. Instead, he exposes it, arguing that discomfort is often the first sign that a conversation actually matters. In doing so, he reflects a generation tired of being told to wait, soften, or smile their way toward equality. Fluk Natoch's career exists at the intersection of fiction and reality, and that space has proven transformative. Widely known for portraying queer characters on screen, Fluk didn't treat those roles as isolated performances. He carried their emotional honesty beyond the script, speaking openly about identity and acceptance off-screen as well. That continuity mattered. For many LGBTQ+ youth, Fluk became more than an actor, he became reassurance. Seeing queer love portrayed with sincerity in dramas is powerful, but seeing the actor behind those stories speak with the same openness gives that representation weight. It bridges the gap between fantasy and lived experience. Fluk's approach is quiet, but deeply grounding. He doesn't rely on declarations or controversy. Instead, he offers steadiness. His presence signals that queer stories are not trends or marketing tools, they are reflections of real lives, deserving of care and dignity, both on and off camera.